Right, let's get down to it, shall we? Family court, the sacred institution where grown-up adults turn into toddlers, arguing over who gets the toy and who gets to cry about it. It's the courtroom equivalent of a Christmas dinner argument, except instead of the Uncle Dave throwing a tantrum about Brexit, it's two people who once shared a Netflix account now fighting over who gets to raise their child and who gets to visit them in a Wetherspoons once a fortnight. Now, just start with the basics. Mothers win custody a lot, like almost always. In about 85 to 90% of cases, the kids end up living with mum. It's less of a statistic and more of a cosmic law at this point. The sun rises in the east, water is wet, and the family courts hand custody to mothers. You'd have to have better odds at winning the Euro Millions than walking into a courtroom and hearing the judge say, you know what, this time let's give the kids to the dad. And you'd think there'd be an official rule that says kids must go with their mum unless she's a convicted arsonist with a side hustle in Grand Theft Auto. But no, the courts are officially gender neutral. Officially. They've got about the same level of neutrality as a football referee with money on one team. The logic is simple. Judges don't want to rock the boat, so they do what's easiest. And what's easiest? Leaving things as they were before the split. And before the split, Dad was probably working about 50 hours a week, while Mum was doing the school run and remembering which one of little Timmy's mates is allergic to nuts. So in court, Mum looks like the responsible one, and Dad looks like a weekend hobbyist who once changed nappy in 2014 and still talks about it today, 2025. So Dad gets contact, not custody, not equal parenting, just contact, which is basically the court's way of saying, here, enjoy your bi-weekly supervised play date. He gets to take the kids bowling, maybe to a McDonald's Happy Meal if he's feeling flush. And then it's back to mum, where the real parenting happens. And the worst part, if he wants more time, he has to fight for it like a gladiator in the Colosseum, except instead of swords and lions, it's solicitors and Kafkas reports. He has to prove he is a decent parent, fill out more paperwork than someone applying for citizenship, and attend hearings where the judge barely looks at him before saying, right, mum's still got full custody, Dad, you may now approach the children on alternative weekends. And here's the best bit. If he so much as raises his voice in court, it's game over. Instant label, aggressive. Meanwhile, mum can turn up 3 hours late, call him an abusive narcissist and swear at the judge, and they'll just go, she's a bit emotional, isn't she? Poor thing. She's been through a lot. And then you've got the child maintenance swindle. Now let's talk about money, because let's be honest, that's half what the family court is really about. And guess what? It turns out, if you lose custody, you don't just lose your kids. You win a direct debit. Welcome to child maintenance, aka congratulations, you are divorced. That'll be £600 a month, and if Dad doesn't pay, we'll find him and we'll garnish his wages and freeze his accounts, take his driving license, and maybe even tattoo deadbeat across his forehead. They've got a whole department dedicated to tracking down fathers who owe child maintenance. If they'd put half that effort into catching criminals in London, London would be like the safest place to live on earth. But what happens when mum doesn't follow the court order? When she refuses contact and says, oh, sorry, the kids are busy this weekend. Maybe next month. Let's see. Do they dock her wages? Do they freeze her bank account? Do they take away her driving license? No, they do nothing. 40% of mothers admit to obstructing contact, yet fewer than 2% are ever penalised. That means a dad can get his wages taken away for missing a payment, but a mum can block her kids from seeing their father without any consequences. This isn't equality. This is customer service at its worst. Imagine you buy a product, let's call it your own child, and every month you have to pay for it, whether you get access to it or not. It's like Netflix charging you, but refusing to let you watch anything. And the courts will tell you, well, it's complicated. We can't force the child to see the father if they don't want to. What the fuck? Really? But you can force the father to pay for the child even if he doesn't want to. Interesting. Really interesting. Then we've got the spousal maintenance, the divorce subscription fee. Now, if a child maintenance wasn't enough, there's a spousal maintenance, or as I like to call it, the subscription fee for your ex. Luckily, this isn't as common anymore. Only about 1 in 5 divorces involve spousal maintenance or spousal support. And even then, it's usually temporary. So when women aren't exactly living off lifetime ex-husband payments anymore, but when they do get spousal maintenance, it's glorious. They get a divorce. They get to divorce their husband and keep part of his income. It's like quitting your job, but still being paid. because you used to work there. But let's be honest, who's actually winning in the long run? Because here's the thing. Women tend to get the house, while men tend to keep their pensions. Fast forward 20 years and what happens? Mum's sitting in the 3-bedroom house, panicking about retirement. Dad is sitting in a rented flat on a beach in Spain, sipping cocktails with his massive pension fund. That's if you've got a pension. The shared parenting myth. Oh, that's a myth. That is a myth. The fairy tale for fathers. Yeah, yes. Shared parenting, the mythical unicorn of family court. Everyone talks about it. Everyone thinks it's a good idea, but somehow no one actually gets to see it. No one implements it and no one gets to see it. It's like a political manifesto. Sounds amazing on paper, but in reality, you're getting the same old nonsense wrapped up in a different bow. And let's be clear. The default assumption should be kids benefit from having both parents equally involved in their lives. No one in their right mind believes that fathers are only fit to parent every other weekend. The occasional awkward Wednesday dinner at Nando's or Wetherspoons or wherever you might take them, McDonald's. And yet, that's exactly what happens 99% of the time. Why? Because despite all the progress in gender equality, despite all the Dads Matter Too campaigns, and despite all the evidence that kids thrive in shared care, family courts still operate like it's 1953, and Dad is some mysterious, distant provider who only exists to pay bills and fix the boiler. Now, here's the real kicker. Shared parenting is actually law. Yep, that's right. It's actually in the system. And the Children and Families Act 2014 even encourages it. It says involvement from both parents after separation. Great, amazing, wonderful, let's get it going. Except there's a catch. There's always a fucking catch. The loophole. The welfare of the child. See, the courts don't have to guarantee shared parenting. Oh, no. That'd be far too simple. Instead, they just have to consider it and then throw it in their favourite legal loophole. The child's welfare is the paramount consideration. Now, that sounds great, right? After all, who wouldn't want what's best for their child? But in practice, that phrase is just a magic wand that lets judges do whatever the fuck they want and go and do it, already going anyway. So, like, all I'm trying to say is, what do they usually do? They stick to the status quo, which means if the mother has been the main carer before the split, the courts will say, let's not disrupt the child's routine. And just like that, Dad gets relegated to the sidelines, because guess what? It's nearly always the case that Mum was the primary carer before the separation. Not because fathers don't want to parent, but because society still pushes women to take the most of the childcare while men work longer hours. So when a separation happens, Dad is already at a disadvantage. He is not starting from 50-50, he's starting from 80-20. And in court, that's where he stays. The shared parenting double standard. And it's the funny part. If a mother fights for full custody, she's seen as a devoted parent protecting her children. If a father fights for shared custody, he's seen as a controlling man trying to punish his ex. Mums get praised for being proactive. Dads get accused of being demanding. It's the same principle. Mums say, I don't think he's fit to have them overnight, and the courts nod along like a fucking yapping dog. Very concerning. Let's limit his time. Dads say, I think we should have equal time. And the courts say, they found him and they say, why are you being so aggressive? Have you considered anger management? I'm only suggesting fucking equal shared time. And God help the father who mentions alienation. If a dad says, I think my ex is turning my kids against me, the courts go, sounds like you're bitter. You're the bitter ex. Maybe take some time and reflect on your own behaviour. But if a mum says, I think my ex is dangerous, guess what? The courts go, let's suspend contact immediately while we investigate. Make him jump through hoops. No evidence required, just a vibe. The shared parenting time scam. Now you might be thinking, well, surely some fathers do get shared custody, right? And yes, a tiny percentage do. But let's talk about what shared parenting actually means in family court. Because when fathers hear shared parenting, they think equal time. Equal rights? Definitely not. Equal say in decisions. When courts hear shared parenting, they think he gets every other weekend and maybe one midweek overnight. That's right. In the court's mind, shared parenting does not mean 50-50. It just means that dad gets little more than occasional time. So in their version of equality, the mother gets 11 days out of 14 and the father gets 3 days out of 14. And we all shake hands and call it a day. And that's not shared parenting. That's a subscription package. It's like your kid is a Netflix. Mum gets the premium plan, full access, no restrictions. Dad gets a basic plan, Only 2 screens a month? No H. Asks for more? That seems unreasonable. Are you trying to control the mother? Why judges won't order 50-50? Here's a one for you. Here's the real reason why family courts don't push for 50-50 shared parenting. It's not because they hate fathers, no. It's not because they love mothers. It's because they hate making hard decisions. 50-50 requires actual effort. It means working out a plan where both parents genuinely co-parent, communicate, and cooperate. And let's be honest, courts don't have time for that shit. They don't want to micromanage parental responsibility. They don't want to be referees in inevitable arguments over school choices, dentist appointments, and who gets Christmas Eve. So what do? They take the easy option, the easy road. They give one parent the main role and let the other parent become a guest star in their own child's life. Problem solved. The real cost of fake shared parenting is a massive impact. It's simple. Kids lose out. Every single study shows this. The kids who have equal relationships with both parents do better in school and have better mental health and build stronger relationships. Yet the courts are still clinging on to the idea that one parent should have the lion's share of parenting and the other should be a visitor. It's outdated, it's lazy, and worst of all, it's avoidable. Because real shared parenting works. It works in Sweden, it works in Belgium, and it works in Australia. It could work here too, but instead we get weekend dads and court orders that no one enforces. And then 10 years later, we wonder why the kid doesn't want to see the father. I wonder. Let me think. I don't know. Maybe it's because you spent a decade treating him like a background character in his own fucking family. Now, here's my final thoughts on this. Let's stop pretending, yeah? Let's stop pretending. So let's just be honest for 1 second. Shared parenting in the UK is a joke. It's a fancy phrase to make fathers think they're getting a fair deal, when in reality, they're just getting polished up for a polished up version of the same old system. The solution, simple. Really is a simple solution. 50-50 parenting as a default. If one parent wants more time, they should have to prove why. No more lazy status quo decisions. For God's sake, enforce court orders on both parents, not just the dads. Because right now, family courts aren't about what's best for the child. They're about what's easiest for the system. And until this changes, fathers will keep losing custody and, well, keep paying for kids that they barely see. And keep being told, don't worry, you'll still get contact. Yeah, like a sales assistant saying, you can look, but you can't touch. It's not shared parenting, it's supervised visits. That's what it is, supervised visiting rights. And that's not justice. It's just another way of the system to keep dads at arm's length while pretending they're still in the game. Where is the justice? Let's cut the nonsense. Where is the justice in family court? Because justice, real justice, means fairness. It means equal rights, equal responsibilities, equal respect. It means a system that actually works in the best interest of the child, not a system that just pretends to. And yet, if you walk into a family court today, do you know what you'll find? You'll find a judge who's already made their mind up before you've even opened your mouth, before you've even walked into the courtroom. You'll find a system that runs on tradition, not on truth. And you'll find a father sitting there trying to prove that he's not the same incompetent part-time babysitter, while the mother just has to exist to be deemed the better parent. That's not justice. That's bureaucracy. And it's bureaucratic laziness. Because here's the dirty secret about family courts. It's not about who's the better parent. It's about who was already in charge before the breakup. And since, in most cases, the mother was the one handling the school runs, the bedtime routines, and the doctor's appointments, the court takes one look and says, right, let's just leave things the way they were. Boom. Case closed. No analysis of whether the father could take on these roles. No consideration whether 50-50 would be better. Just a quick, lazy assumption that mum's been doing the most of the parenting, so she should keep doing it. And if dad disagrees, if dad says no, actually, I want to be an equal parent, I want to do school runs, I help with the homework, cook their meals and be in their lives properly, the court doesn't care. Because that would mean making changes, and that would mean challenging the status quo. And that would mean effort. And do you know what family courts hate more than anything else? Effort. Justice for fathers? Not in this system. Some people might say, but if the fathers really wanted custody, they'd fight harder. Right? Like that's how justice works, right? So what are dads supposed to do? Spend years in court, draining their entire life savings, hiring expensive solicitors, which you don't need, or Mackenzie friends, which you do need, and sitting through endless hearings just to prove that they should have the same rights as the mother did from day one. Because let's be clear, a mother doesn't have to prove that she's fit to have custody. A father has to prove he's fit just to get a weekend. A mother can refuse contact without facing consequences. A father can be dragged through the court if he misses a single child support payment. A mother can move 300 miles with the kids and just send a polite email saying, oh, by the way, we're living in Scotland now. A father can be accused of being controlling if he even asks for extra time on a school night. Where is the justice in that? Where is the equality? Because I'll tell you this, I'll tell you where it isn't. It isn't in family court. Justice for children, not in this system either. No way. And let's not forget the biggest victims of all, the kids. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about fathers getting a raw deal. It's about the children being denied proper relationships with their father, with their dads, because the system is stuck in the past. Children deserve both parents, not one main parent and a visitor. And yet family court still treats dads like a part-time extra in their own kids' lives, even though research shows the kids do better when both parents are involved. Even though shared parenting is the norm in other countries that actually care about the child welfare. Even though so many good fathers are sitting in courtrooms being forced to beg for what should already be theirs. Because here's the truth. The best parent is both parents. And until family courts accept that, there's no justice. Not for fathers, not for children, not for anyone. What needs to happen? What needs to change? What's the solution? How do we fix this? Broken system. It's simple. 50-50 parenting as the default. No more starting positions where one parent is all the power. No, doesn't work. If both parents are fit, they start as equal, on equal grounding. That's how it should be. If one parent wants to full custody, they should have to prove why they should have full custody. Proper enforcement of court orders, that needs to be happening. If dad doesn't pay child support, he faces real consequences. If a mum refuses contact, she should face real consequences too. The law shouldn't work. The law should work both ways. It shouldn't work one for not the other. Just against the fathers. No more gender-based assumptions. Stop assuming that mums are always better, always the better parent, because they spent more time doing childcare before the breakup. Doesn't work. Stop assuming that dads only want contact to annoy their exes. Doesn't work. Stop treating fathers like weekend babysitters. Judges who actually hold parents accountable. If the mother deliberately alienates the father, the courts should act, not just shrug. If a father fights for more time, he shouldn't have to be a millionaire or a miracle worker just to get a fair shot. If a mother refuses to comply with contact orders, enforce them. Fines, consequences, reversing residency if necessary. Because right now, the courts will only take a father's driving license. The courts will take a father's driving license for missing a payment, but won't even send a warning letter to a mother who denies contact. That's not justice. That's systematic discrimination. The family courts are a joke. And at the end of the day, the family court system isn't designed for justice. It's designed for convenience. It's easier to leave things as they are because it's easier. It's easier to give mothers the power and let fathers fight for scraps because it's easier. It's easier to take money from dads than to enforce contact for them. It's easier. And that's why the system is broken, because it's not about what's best for the child. It's about what's easiest and for the court. And until that changes, fathers will keep losing their rights, kids will keep losing their dads, and the phrase family justice will remain the biggest joke in the legal system. Justice is not there. It's not here. It never was. And unless the system changes, it never will be. Peace and love, Violet's glove.